Hey, what's up, YouTube? So thanks for joining me. So I haven't really prepared too much today, so it's probably going to be a short-ish stream. We'll see how things go. So basically, I've kind of been diving into Bitwig. How's it, Wasp Gaming, for joining us, and Vishvendra, thanks for joining us. My upload schedule is not daily, so as of at the moment, there's like a guaranteed video every Friday. And then basically on Wednesdays, I try to do a live stream as of recently. I try to do like a weekly live stream. And then whenever I've finished editing videos for like different plugins and smaller techniques, I'll just kind of upload those as they go. So I did actually upload a video yesterday and I'm going live today. So not quite daily, but I try to get as much out as quick as possible while it's still fresh in my mind. Hey, Nicola Souza, thanks for joining us. Hey, Moshe. So my idea today is to kind of just dive into the system called Bitwig Grid, which is a kind of system that they've built into Bitwig 3. It's kind of like a modular system, quite similar to, for those who know, Reactor. But already straight off the bat, it's a lot more kind of intuitive and user-friendly. And one of the really, really cool features, especially for somebody who's kind of diving into the software for the first time, or even diving into kind of like modular style programming and sound design for the first time, is they've got these kind of tooltips for each of the modules. So you press F1, you click on the module and you press F1 and you get this kind of like instant, very easy to follow and very easy to understand kind of like manual for each of the modules, which is a really super, super cool feature. Apart from the fact that you've kind of got these this readout of like the ins and outs for each of the modules as you're kind of patching it, so it makes things a little bit easier to understand in terms of like the signal flow and that kind of thing. So the sound that you heard like as I was starting here was basically just kind of the starter patch that kind of opens up as you start Polygrid. So what I'm going to do, and I've kind of like added a few modules to create a little bit more of a kind of melodic ambient kind of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open up I'm going to create a new instance and start again and create this kind of like random lead sound again with you guys to show you sort of how cool this kind of patching system is and how easy it is to understand, especially for guys coming from software that are kind of interested in modular, but don't quite understand the full, all of the different modules and, how signal flow works and all of that. So what I'll quickly do is I'll turn this volume up so you guys can hear a reference of what this kind of patch sounds like, and we're going to try to recreate a similar random sort of sound. Cool, so let us create a new polygrid over here. And we can actually remove this one. So as you start, or as you create a new polygrid device, it'll come preset with these kind of like a regular kind of synth patch, where your MIDI will automatically send through to this oscillator and stuff. You can kind of turn that off and send modulation in, and break it apart from the kind of modular world as well. Yeah, Vcv Rack, I mean, I love it. I love Vcv Rack because a lot of the stuff that's in there is kind of built on like real world modules. So you get to kind of like try a lot of these real world modules before going out and buying it. So I would say if you do want to get into modular synthesis, like actual hardware, Vcv Rack is a bit more of a step in that direction. But I think, what Bitwig are trying to attempt with the grid is to build a system that you can kind of use in conjunction very well with a modular system, because they've got these kind of like CV outputs and all sorts of like outputs that you can build within your patch to do all sorts of interesting things. So I'm not going to get into that today. We're just going to kind of like explore and make some random sounds and create some effects, because there's an effects version of this as well. So I'm not going to kind of look into using it with the hardware today, but I'm definitely going to do that in future tutorials and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. What Neon said there, it's going back to a comment on his video, I think, regarding phase plant. And you can absolutely build a sort of similar patches and stuff, but the workflow is a little bit more roundabout with something like this, because you've got to kind of wire the things up and all sorts of stuff like that. So it does take a little bit more of a learning curve in terms of a modular sound design environment. But yeah, you can absolutely do the stuff that I was doing in that previous phase plant video. But anyway, so basically what my idea was with that previous patch is, let me just find it here. There was a Quantizer module, right? So what this does is it allows you to send sort of any modulation signal in, and it'll snap each of these kind of modulations to a specific chromatic key, for example. So a really cool thing to do is to create something like a random sample and hold and quantize that and use that to kind of create melodies and all sorts of stuff like that. So that's kind of what I had going in the patch that I showed you guys. So let's wire this output into the input of this pitch quantizer. And you can see it's already, due to the modulation that's already going on inside this little guy, it's already snapping those sort of modulations to these notes over here. So obviously I want to put it into a kind of minor type of scale, chord type of thing. So let's do something like that for now. We can still change it a little bit later. So obviously there's nothing triggering the envelope over here. But what we can do is we can set up something like probability to, randomly trigger the envelope every now and then to create like a random pitch that's kind of quantized to a scale, and then this kind of rhythmic pattern that's not quantized to create a kind of like slightly in, slightly out type of melody type of thing. So let's go to... I'm still pretty new to this, guys. You gotta just bear with me. I'm just trying to find where, under which... There we go, probabilities. So there's various different kind of like triggering or gate type of things. You can either do like a step sequencer or a gate sequencer. But I think for a more kind of like a random type of thing, probabilities is pretty cool because each of these sliders represents like a percentage chance that it's going to create a trigger, which is a pretty cool effect. So let's put that in there. Okay, I need to put in a amp module just so I can turn this volume down so I can talk. So for those who didn't realize, I've got a delay and reverb on this channel. I didn't even see that. I'm gonna get to the comments now. I'm just on a roll. I don't want to forget like the patch that I had before recreating it. That'd be an absolute disaster. So another really cool thing about the kind of way that they've designed this modular environment is, one of the things that kind of annoys me, but at the same time, it's just the thing with modular systems is, say for example, you put in an envelope and you don't quite like the sound or the style of the envelope. You have to actually remove it, unpatch it, put another one in. Whereas here, what they've done is they've created a system where they've kind of grouped all of these modules into these kind of categories. And each one can be changed and retain what was happening in the patch. So personally, that's absolutely mind-blowing because that's going to save a lot of time with these kind of like experimental type of things. When, say, for example, you're not sure whether you want to use like a simple attack release or an ADSR, for example. So here, because we're using this kind of like triggered system, I think an ADSR would fit a little bit better because it's going to create like a plucky type of vibe. So let's throw that in there. Oh yeah, this is still, I think, 3.0.0, so I may have not updated to the exact latest version. So just another warning that this might not be the exact version that you see when you do purchase the like final version. But yeah, like this is more of an idea, like my idea with this video is more of a kind of an exploration of, sound design, what makes up different effects and that kind of stuff, as opposed to kind of showing off the like in-depth features of Bitwig and stuff like that. But anyway, so here what's happening is this modulation doesn't have a amount. So it's kind of set to a steady pitch while this trigger is doing the probability thing. So here what we can do is we can, to punch in an exact like semitones is probably going to be a little bit easier. So you can control click and do something like 48. Okay, it's a little bit chaotic. So what we can do is we can create like a sort of master clock that's going to clock our little probability system that we've created here, as well as the sample and hold. So this little guy, what we can do is we can actually pop the F1 open and have a look. This parameter over here is the smoothing. So what that's going to do is it's either going to, all the way to the left, it's going to be like a stepped sample and hold, or as you move more to the right, it's going to create like varying modulations. And for this type of thing, we might not want these varying modulations because we're trying to create like this melody. So let's turn this all the way that way. Actually not too sure what the second knob does. Feedback. So, okay, correlation between successive outputs. So this is probably the amount of randomness in the signal. So here, let's throw in I think the scale is working. Sorry, I'm just browsing over the comments. I'm gonna dig deeper into the comments in a moment. But I think it is pitching to scale now. Let's just put in a clock here, which is in LFO, and then we can send this guy to these. Wait, which one is the clock input here? Restarts the LFO phase, offsets the LFO phase range or rate. Would it be retrigger in? Okay, let's check this out. Okay, so I think with this probabilities thing, this guy, I think that snaps it to the amount of clocks, then it divides that by the amount of steps. But when it's off, then it just advances with the clock like a regular traditional modular type of sequencer. I think that's kind of what I've got going on here. There was some other things that I did. I think I had the random here. So another cool thing is you're not limited to, plugging, for example, like an output into an input. These modulation modules inside Bitwig have these little nodes which allow you to then, you click on it and then drag it to another parameter, for example. So let's say, when the sample and hold goes up, we'll open the decay and maybe open up the attack as well to create more of kind of like a paddy type of sound, to create more variation in this kind of overall sound that we've got going on. So let's see how this. Okay, it's a bit chaotic. So just checking over the comments here. I don't think there's anything. No. So I haven't actually connected the grid itself to external hardware. Like I said, just kind of exploring grid. I'm still trying to figure out what a lot of these modules do in relation to like real world stuff or stuff that I kind of already understand. So if we want to do less of like a chaotic thing and we want to kind of, sync this to a beat, then we would use this transport control, I believe. So here you can actually choose like the steps in relation to like the tempo over here. So let's remove this connection. Wait a sec. So this is the reset. And this would be like the phase. Okay. That's probably going to be more musical. Okay, so let's have a listen to. Okay, so enough of that kind of like random pitchy thing. What I want to do is create kind of like rhythmic stuff using the probability, but synced up to a kind of more sensible tempo and stuff like that. So I might actually throw in like a drum loop or something that I've got and, play with it alongside this. But let's check out some of these filters in here. Let's try out this SVF, the good old bandpass. Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. So, hey, Don Joe, thanks for joining us. So, here, what I want to chat about is mixing signals and mixing modulations and stuff like that. So, let's use the blender over here for two reasons. Let's use it to mix another oscillator in here to the filter, as well as use it to mix a sample and hold type of randomness into this modulation over here. So it's not just kind of like the same LFO going over and over again. We're kind of mixing in a bit more of a kind of randomness going on there. So let's throw another one of these guys back in here. And let's listen to this. Okay, so now let's add in another oscillator. Oh geez, what even are these? What's a swarm? This sounds good. I don't even know, but yeah. So yeah, let's mix this in here. So here we're using the mixer to mix kind of like CV or modulation signals, and here we're using it to mix the audio signals. So we've got like a kind of crossfade between these two oscillators, as well as a crossfade between like a regular LFO and a more random sample and hold type of LFO. So let's play around with this. The swarm is a supersaw oscillator. So that's pretty cool for like Reese type things. Maybe we can mix a Reese, like deep Reese type of sound in here. Maybe modulate this spread or something. Let's have a listen. So it's so cool how you can kind of, not only, route these modulations and mix them and send them to specific places in your patch, but you've also got the ability to kind of, like free route them with these like floating modulations where you just kind of click on this guy and any of the knobs in the patch can then be patched using that little output. So I've sent, what did I do again? So this LFO over here, I sent to the spread, and that's turning that guy. And then this sample and hold is then like opening that decay of that ADSR a little bit each time. And then they're both being mixed to create like their own kind of modulation for the filter. So that then creates this LFO as well as a sample and hold. And here you can actually see, I'm just going to check if this is on the screen for you guys. Yeah. So here you can see it shows you what these signal in and signal in 2 looks like, and it shows you what the combination of those two outputs looks like, which is really, really cool. So we can play around here and see how this alters, you know, as well as here, how it alters the patch, you know. So you get this kind of visual representation, you know. Often in these modular environments, you have to open up a new module just to be able to check these things out, like a scope or something like that. So what's happening with this one? Okay, I think that looks pretty good. By the way, hello, Jonathan. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Hannes, and hey, Ringlefink. Thanks for joining us. So here, what I actually want to do is let's create another envelope that we can use to modulate this guy, but we can actually create another blend module to mix this sort of combination of these LFOs alongside the ADSR to give it kind of more of a plucky vibe. So let's drag, I guess we only need like an AD for this. And then what we could do is we could either use this kind of like floating modulation, but I like the idea of these kind of blends, you know, because you can kind of easily route anything else into the patch. Or into that part, like for example, if you want to like cross-modulate it instead of modulating the filter with this, you could just drag like the oscillator in there, for example, or something like that. Anyway, so let's create this guy, and this was going into here. Then let's put this into here, and then the triggers are being created by this guy. Okay, so I actually got it wrong. It looks like the envelopes are like VCA envelope combinations. So it actually takes audio in. So I think this is the envelope out here. It's very helpful that they've got everything kind of like color coded. So I was easily able to see like, oh wait, I'm routing the audio out into the blend, which is wrong because here it shows that the audio or the signal out is green. So let's replace that with this guy. Okay, that's cool sound. I actually really enjoy that. And it's probably a good time to move on to the grid effects section of Bitwig. So for those of us who are joining us and wondering how this like random rhythmic sound is being created, this little module over here, if you press F1, it opens up like the little tooltips, which is really cool. This is a probabilities sequencer. So this like yellow line is like a percentage in the amount of probability that there is that's going to create a trigger. So it's a cool way of creating like a rhythmic sound that, you know, works at a tempo, but it's not going to be the same every time around. So what we can do is I actually want to quickly find a loop that I can just play alongside here. I wonder if this one will even work with the pitch. Okay, cool. So here, what I actually want to do is let's remove this delay and let's create our own delay from scratch. So this is a pretty cool lesson in kind of like understanding how a delay or echo effect is built, because they don't actually give you like an actual kind of delay plugin per se. It's called Effects Grid, I think. Effects. Or is it called Grid Effects? No, it's Effects Grid. Why didn't that come up? So here, if we open this up, you'll see you've got this kind of like audio input and output already routed. So the really cool thing about this is they've kind of designed it to automatically handle hey Keith, thanks for joining us. Hey Jasper. Hey Boris, thanks for joining us. Can we see a rollout 16 bars of it? What do you mean 16 bars of what? That synth sequence? Because it's kind of like probabilistic, so it's not going to be the same MIDI every time, if that makes sense. It's kind of built on chance. So when I press stop, it carries on going. I actually have to turn the volume down in the patch. It's a little bit annoying, but I should actually, before, you know, while it's still in my head, think of actually just putting in a level here so that I can do it on this side. So one cool thing to note is that Bitwig Grid kind of is designed to handle, you know, stereo, mono, mid-side, all this stuff very intuitively. Whereas with other kind of software modular environments, you kind of need to, you know, you'll have, for example, like 2 audio inputs, and you've got to create like a different effects chain for each one. This one, you know, it'll pick up, okay, this is a stereo line that it's running. Now this attenuate module automatically works in stereo format, as opposed to like in this polygrid where it's working in mono format, if that makes sense. So yeah, let me actually turn this one up, and then this is going to be my control to talk. Yeah, this is like my kind of trick in. I actually use a similar module in the modular environment to create random triggers and stuff like that, and alongside a sample and hold that's, you know, scaled chromatically. So it's a cool way of creating these kind of random music that's either like rhythmical or melodic, depending on how you kind of patch it. So here, what they've done is you've got a delay. But now this delay is not like a delay like, an effects plugin, like I had, color copy, which is a delay on the channel. This essentially is like delay, like time align or sample delay, the two plugins that I showcased in that video yesterday. So it basically takes the input and delays it to the output. So that's not very helpful if we're wanting to create a kind of like echoey effect. But what we can do is we can use those blends that we were using in the previous example, mix, to blend the output with the signal that's coming in and then send it to the input. So we also actually want to create another blend and send the output again to this one, and then a dry signal. So we've got like a dry wet control. So this is creating the amount of feedback that's being sent out and back into the delay system. And this is the sort of dry wet between like this, just the straight like audio input and this little feedback system that we've created. So what does it sound like? So this blend you might want to set to equal power. What that means is instead of curving, from kind of A to Z where it kind of like mixes, it kind of has more of a slope, I believe. And that's going to make more of an even feedback effect that we kind of used to hearing in echoes. Whereas a dry wet blend, I think it'll sound more natural on equal gain. But you can play with these, you're not limited to doing it one specific way, which is really cool. So now, we're not limited to, for example, like say, for example, you've got like a delay and then you put a filter afterwards. What we can do is we can put filters here, we can put it here, we can put it here. We can really go wild in terms of the signal flow of this effect. And that's what's going to create these different types of like tonal characteristics in different delays and all sorts of stuff, is like the signal chain. But the actual concept of the delay is pretty straightforward. Let me check some comments here. Definitely something cosmic going on. Updated my Bitwig license last night. And the man dash is going live. Yay. Phase modules confusing me. Yeah, so I haven't got there yet. There's some cool things you can do with like changing modulations and all sorts of stuff, distorting them and that kind of thing, but I haven't quite got there yet. Does anyone here make beats with headphones? Yeah, I know quite a few people who do. It's difficult because I would say you generally want a reference on speakers because specifically something that's got a lot of low end, headphones really do struggle to recreate a very accurate low end to how a sort of speaker sounds in a room. And something like dance music where you've got like a really heavy bass, your sort of sound and the feel of the bass is very reliant on a acoustic environment to actually hear like the full effect of those low waves. So headphones really struggle to kind of give you like a picture of like what the subs and what the really like heavy low ends sound like. But it's also good in the converse. Using only monitors can also be detrimental. Listening to stuff on headphones can sometimes bring out reverbs that you may not have heard were so drastic and all sorts of stuff like that. So I usually recommend, doing most of your work on headphones and then referencing. I recommend doing most of your work on speakers and then referencing from time to time on headphones. But obviously, if you're limited to something, like if you've only got headphones, you should definitely check out something like SonarWorks. It works with specific brands and models of headphones to kind of like acoustically correct those headphones and give you a more accurate sound. So what I would then suggest is use something like SonarWorks and do most of the work on SonarWorks and then reference what does it sound like without SonarWorks, and obviously make it sound the best with it, but kind of find that balance. Yeah, exactly. On headphones, the stereo image is often a lot wider, but it's because, when you listen to headphones, this ear is hearing reflections from that speaker, and this ear is hearing reflections from that speaker. Whereas in headphones, you're kind of in an enclosed environment, so you're getting a much cleaner image. But what that does is it kind of like widens the stereo space. So it can be good to bring out things that you may not have heard before, and vice versa. But I generally recommend, like best possible case is a pair of speakers and then reference on headphones. But failing that, SonarWorks does work really well. I've heard great examples, great results of people who only work with headphones who use that system, and I've only had good results since using it on my monitors and stuff. So definitely check it out. So yeah, what I was saying is let's throw in a filter, and we can play with where we're putting this filter in this kind of signal path. So here, let's filter this kind of like feedback chain before sending it back to the blend. Let's check how this sounds. That is so kiff. That is like some alien talk stuff going on there. When you kind of like overdrive this feedback bit with like a filter and then turn this delay down into kind of like the millisecond region. Wowzer. What we can do is we can maybe tweak this a little bit with a bit of like some other LFO and see what kind of crazy results we can come up with here. Some alien sounds. Okay, looks like I'm missing some comments there. It's a lot harder to get the stereo field. Yeah, there are ways of getting an accurate image on headphones, like I said, but I don't like personally don't like working on headphones for long periods of time. I think I've just got very big ears, but they start to get sore after like 30 minutes or so. Even with, I've tried like massive headphones, I've tried like some high-end stuff as well. But I usually like work on speakers as much as possible, and then I'll just reference on headphones. Yeah, a lot of people have been recommending the DT770 Pros, and I haven't actually tried those. And I think there was another version as well. I think there was the 990s as well, which also quite highly recommended. So I've actually been meaning to make my way to an audio shop that's got them in stock, so I can actually just try them on my ears to see. Because that for me is like the deciding factor. Like, I guess the audio quality and stuff you can get used to. No headphone I think is perfect, or no speaker is perfect, but you can kind of get used to working with them. So for me, it's kind of just about fitting on my massive ears, I guess. Okay, so yeah, I'm lucky. Like, I've actually got like my house, and then there's kind of like a alleyway on this side. So like I've got my house behind me and then the neighbors on the other side. So like I'm blasting that way, but it goes through the whole house, so they don't even hear it. But I've got like between the studio either like my house on this side or like an alleyway on this side. So I'm super lucky. But it was like the deciding factor when finding this place. I was like, no, I actually need, because I've obviously been doing this for a while. Anyway, so let's see what madness this sounds like. I actually want to make a blend here, so we can kind of blend between the ridiculous low pass and this just straight in feedback amount. So let's go mix. Let's go blend. And then output into this blend. Yo, all these blenders. David Avocado Wolf would be proud. Sounds like whale calls and stuff. Okay, so I've got to end the stream soonish because I've got to do a few things today still. So if you guys got any questions, hit me up in the comments. I'm going to go grab a refill of water quickly and I'll let this play on loop for a bit. And I'll answer some questions when I'm back. what's up, Paul, Lucian? Thanks for joining us. So, don't think there's many more questions. So what I'll do is I'll just carry on making random sounds for like 10 more minutes or so. And if any more questions pop up, then I'll just answer those as they come. So yeah, if anybody's joining us now, we created this kind of like modular synth type of patch based on this probability sequencer over here. And this basically is like these percentage of like how much chance there is that each of these is going to create a trigger, and then like random modulations like on the filter and stuff like that. So it's a very basic sound, and then we've got this kind of like crazy delay type of thing going on here. So we're essentially trying to create our own like effect using like really basic building blocks. So a little kind of side note is that a lot of the effects that we know in music production are based on very, very simple building blocks, like a delay in this form, not like in an echo plugin format, like a delay like in this format, is the kind of, how can I say, oh, by the way, Paul Lucian, let me know if the sync on this one is the same. We were chatting about that thing. And the guys actually got back to me, but let me know if the sync is better on this one. Anyway, so this kind of like delay is the kind of building block that makes up so many different types of plugins that exist, widening plugins where it'll like kind of delay one and, left, right them, chorus, phaser, flanger, all these types of things are different ways of routing a very, very simple kind of delay effect. And furthermore, something like an EQ or a filter, similar concept, that's kind of the other building block for a lot of the effects and stuff that we know of. So, okay, cool. Awesome. That's good to know. I also want to check it in a few days to see if it does the same thing. But anyway, yeah, so if you kind of have this kind of environment where you've got, free reign over what you want to do with a delay and how you want to route them with filters and EQs, you can pretty much create, I reckon, any type of audio effect that exists. I might be wrong in some of the kind of more re-triggery, glitchy type of things, but that being said, is the concept of those is also like taking a sample, delaying it, but then not playing the original one, and all sorts of stuff like that. Wasp Gaming. So, my idea, like one of the reasons why I've chosen Bitwig as opposed to Ableton is I'm not actually looking for a new DAW to produce music with. I'm still very, very happy with Cubase, and I probably will be for many years to come. I actually just like exploring new stuff, so this is great to learn these types of things. But also, I think this whole like delay is quite a fundamental, learning about how to build these effects from scratch is quite a fundamental thing in sound design. So this whole layout is really cool to show you guys. But the reason I've chosen Bitwig is more for a live performance type of thing. So my idea is that I'll have bits of my tracks, like kick and bass loops and percussion loops, and then different MIDI patterns and stuff loaded up inside Bitwig, and then I'll do most of the sound design stuff on the actual modular. And I'm finding syncing up Bitwig, like the different channels with different modular stuff. Oh yeah, and as well as something that I've been wanting to show you guys that I haven't actually said anything about on my channel. I got myself a Cyclone, a little present for myself. So that's basically another reason why I've got like a couple of different hardware units. You've probably seen the SH101 as well. So trying to sync up all these different systems, like one that uses MIDI, one that uses like the SH101 that uses like old school CV gate kind of stuff. Having these different channels all sending out different clocks that you can offset, it's incredibly handy for syncing up to external gear. So that's why I've kind of chosen it. Ajit Singh, it's so strange that you said that because I'm pretty sure you were in the comments of that one. While it was streaming, it was in sync, right? And it was fine. And I'm pretty sure, like today, myself and Paul Lucian actually picked up that either today or yesterday, it suddenly just jumped out of sync. So I'm trying to figure out what the hell actually happened there. So I actually contacted YouTube support and they're going to do something about it. Otherwise, I'll like re-upload it, but I don't really want to do that because then I don't think it'll have all the comments and stuff. But anyway, it is something that I picked up. It's super weird. To what degree can you set the note in the synth, or could you easily analyze it and determine its tone with ear spectrum? So here, for example, this little orange, let me zoom in a bit here because this is a bit chaotic. This little orange guy, this is kind of like a key track mode. So thanks, Ajit. It's good to know. So this little orange guy basically determines whether this oscillator is going to be key tracked using the actual input that's coming like from a MIDI controller. But you can turn it off and actually set the pitch over here to any tone that you want. You know, if it's 0, I think it'll obviously be C, and then however many semitones up or down. At the beginning of the stream, I actually showed off that pitch quantizer, so you may want to like rewatch this one and double check. Yeah, Wasp Gaming, that's exactly it. Now imagine trying to sync that as well as SH101 that doesn't have MIDI. It uses old CV gate clock, as well as a modular synth with various channels all together. It's a nightmare. So this, like, you can actually offset each hardware channel. I'd actually suggest going back to thanks, Django. Going back to the live stream I did, I think 2 weeks ago, where I kind of walked through why it was like my first exploration into Bitwig and using it with a modular synth. And there's a couple of kind of key aspects that I bring up there that you'd probably really enjoy about this software. So what was I saying? Okay, yeah. So here, for example, you can offset these. So what I'm doing is I'm key tracking it to D sharp or E flat. Let me not get things wrong for anyone who understands the inside joke there. You can turn this off, but here I'm sending an E flat or D sharp, and it's basically then detuning by 2 octaves and 3 octaves on the like key tracked note. I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly, but yeah. Well, dude, that's the Wasp Gaming. That's the amazing thing about Bitwig is it's on an actual channel, like the clock. So, like the system basically works out, like the plugin delay compensation works out based on the actual channel, and then when you save the project and come back in, it's the same because it's inside the project. Whereas with Ableton, like the clock offset and stuff was in the actual menu. So if you open a project that's in a different tempo, you've got to then go into the menu and change it. So, you know, like for somebody like me, I've got a couple of different projects going on. I want to be able to, you know, play a techno set and then play a psytrance set and then play like an ambient set. I don't want to have to sit and change the clock every time. I just want to open up the project and play. Hey Django, thanks man. So yeah, I think I'm going to do like 5 more minutes or so, and then if any more questions arise, I'll answer them. Otherwise, call it a day. So yeah, there was actually one more thing that I wanted to show you guys that I actually touched on earlier. So about the whole like stereo thing, the fact that the system automatically picks up whether you're running like a stereo effect, but you've also got the ability to split these kind of things that are going on. So let's say, for example, we want to run like the audio in stereo into this distortion and then split the stereo image between like mid and side and then merge it again here, for example. But like, let's only affect like the side channels of the sound and leave like the mid dry, or vice versa. So let's see how like this will sound. So it's really cool that like it automatically handles the stereo thing. You know, like in a regular environment, you'd actually have to have two inputs, two distortions, you know, routing the whole thing, all complicated. Anyway, so here let's do this, and then this side channel let's send here and here. It doesn't seem to be working here. Let me just see if I've got everything routed correctly. So in there, sides like that. Boom, boom, mid, back into sides. If anyone can figure that out, let me know. Because like, you know, maybe what we can do is, maybe it's because the signal's coming in sort of monophonic, that there's not much happening there. So maybe we can try I wonder if we could like widen it with a like time offset somehow with a delay. So that's getting a bit complicated, but we could do it, I guess. It's got me off guard. So here, what we can actually do is, let's go stereo split, stereo merge here, and then alter like just the right channel by, you know, delay it ever so slightly. I wonder if this will work. Wow, that is absolute insanity. So what we're doing is basically like widening it by just supplying it with a different left and right channel so that it can create a sideband. And then the mono, like the mid channel, we're putting this filter on and then doing that crazy alien effect on the side channels. And we can just, you know, add some of these modulations here to this to give that mid-channel some craziness. Okay, it doesn't look like many comments are coming through, so I reckon after this one I'm going to call it a night. And I'll probably see you guys on Friday for the next episode in the mixing tutorial. Oh, it's so cool. It's got like a mix. Ah, that's so awesome. I didn't even know that. I was like putting a module in the whole time. Anyway, that's very Awesome. So I think that's pretty much it. So if any of my Patreons, my Patreon $5 supporters have Bitwig, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out how to save these patches and then upload those to my Patreon portal if you want these, what am I going to call this effect? The alienator. If you want this alienator effect. I actually had one there called alien delay, which was almost as crazy, but this is next level crazy. So yeah. Why won't it save to library? Oh, there we go. Let's call this one the alienator. Awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream, and I will see you guys Friday, and then next week.